to have you on, and he sent me about 3 pages of questions to ask. So Shane, I will get to some of those questions. So for anyone who doesn't know, Rugby League Guru, you've done amazingly well on social media, mate. I guess we have a segment, Am I Normal? So did you have any weird things that you actually do before we chat about
just
your
like
career?
in general in my life?
Yeah,
like,
just in general.
mate, probably the weirdest thing about me, and it, funnily enough, it's conversations like this where it just about always comes up at some point.
Yeah.
I do not listen to any music whatsoever.
Okay.
So like, when we go to, when me and my wife or me and mates, whatever, go to trivia and it's any musical questions, I have like zero knowledge whatsoever. I'm a podcast listener. But like, you could probably name 10 of the biggest bands in the world. There's a good chance I wouldn't know 7 of them. It's just weird. Yeah, it's never grabbed me, and it's one of those things, like it never comes up except for when I'm doing stuff like this. People quite often say, oh, what's your dream gig you could go to? And I'm like, I don't have one. I don't.
Yeah. So
one concert in my life, never been to a festival or anything. It's just music's just never grabbed me, which is weird.
So can I ask you, mate, for you, is it like you would have to turn it off straight away, or you just?
Oh, no. Like if it's on the radio or whatever, like, I don't consume it. Like I don't, like some like really, the most popular songs of all time. Like I'll know them and stuff, but it's just never grabbed me. Like I would never listen to music if I'm going for a walk or if I'm at the gym or anything like that. It just doesn't interest me. When I get in the car, I put on a podcast. And I've been like that for the last 10, 15 years sort of thing. So to me, I never think about it, but it is something whenever someone stumbles on it, like when my producer, Kat, she, we started to have a few conversations and she was like, what the fuck is going on here? He doesn't know any of the stuff I'm talking about. Then she eventually realized, oh, he doesn't listen to music, which rattles the shit out of Timmy Williams and whatnot. So I reckon that's probably the weirdest thing about me, I would say.
And then can I ask you, Roo, can I say, does your wife listen to
Loves
music?
it. Her family, music fanatics. Like she will go to double digits concerts each year. They will, every time we have an event, it finishes with them singing for 3 hours. And no, it's just never, and I to be honest with you, before I met her, my music knowledge was even less. But yeah, it's very, it's an interesting thing because I don't even think about it because, whatever's normal to you is normal in your head. It's just never really grabbed me. It's an interesting, like when I talk about it out loud and I think about it, it is pretty bizarre, but it's just sort of what I've got used to.
I asked you that because I'm kind of similar to you.
Okay.
So my wife, her dad is a musician, and he obviously, grew up around the guy that was in Smile that became Queen and everything. And they're from England and they love it. But I thought maybe it's because I hear music, because I'm a personal trainer. I hear music in the gym all day, every day, that when I get home, I'll never really say to put it on, but I'll get home and she's with my daughter and they're dancing to Spice Girls or whatever. And I'm kind of similar to you, not like against it, but I just wouldn't choose to listen.
And that's the same as me. I'm not against it in any way, shape or form. Like I get it 100%. It's just never grabbed me. I would rather listen to a podcast about sport or like I love my true crime sort of stuff. So I think via the general population, that's a bit weird to have no interest whatsoever in it. Yeah.
And then it was funny because I heard your story about starting the podcast. Yep. And I know it's not a fangirl like you because I'm saying I'm the same as you, but I was quite similar in the sense that when my wife had the idea for me to start one, I actually had no idea about equipment. I didn't listen to any myself. Yep. And I know you said that story. I think it was on the buy round, but can you, for my listeners, repeat that story?
Yeah, it's like I sort of had the Instagram page for a year or two. And mate, what I used to do, and it's kind of a full circle moment this morning. My favorite like sports podcast is The Herd, Colin Cowherd. Does like American sports and stuff, which I'm very passionate about in the off season. Anyway, I used to listen to Colin. Well, he used to do a show every day. It was like a 3-hour show about whatever's going on in American sports. And then at the end of it, he would upload 3 5-minute clips and he put them on Facebook. My drive to work used to be a 15-minute drive. So I'd load up those 3 clips and just have them sitting in the car, not watching them because I'm driving, obviously, but just have them playing. And I remember one of my mates got in the car one time and said, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, oh, I like this dude. I can't watch it on YouTube. He's like, why don't you just listen to the podcast? And I was like, what's a podcast? I had no idea. Anyway, then I discovered it. Funnily enough, when I got up this morning, I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram story, but that guy, Colin Cowherd, that inspired me to start all this, he did an ad for the NRL in Vegas.
Oh, I did see.
That I saw this morning. I just went, I've sent it to like 8 of my mates, being like, this is the best thing ever. And it's interesting because he's a very polarizing character. A lot of people can't stand him, but I'm a huge fan. So to hear him say the words rugby league today, I was like, that's unreal. Hectic.
Yeah, that's such a great story, mate. And it is interesting too, because as I said, I was quite similar to yourself. I guess now, what do you listen to now when you're not? Do you listen to yourself?
No, I can't stand listening to my own stuff. And mate, to be honest with you, I get away from rugby league as much as I can from like when I'm listening to stuff. So like, like there's some of the other podcasts and the content coming out at the moment is unreal. Like I'm obviously on Bloke, but Jimmy Graham, he's next door to me, the Buy Round, they do tremendous things. Scope and Mace do unbelievable content, but I try and get away from rugby league as much as I can. So as I said, I like Colin Cowherd, like the last week with the Super Bowl. I've been really into that, but I love my true crime podcast. Like it's sort of every time I go on a holiday or get on the flight, I try and find something I haven't listened to from a true crime perspective, and it's pretty tough because I've consumed most of it. So yeah, I love podcasts. I love, things that are real and that have actually happened and learning. Like I also love like World War II sort of podcasts and all that sort of stuff. So probably, another thing that people probably don't expect from me. I think they think I'm tuned into rugby league 24/7, which in reality I am. But when I have my moments to myself and I can get away from it, I do like to, yeah.
Do you smash it on the Netflix as well? Are you true crime on the
Yeah, Netflix? I do. Yeah, whenever there's something new. We watched a good one last night. And yeah, most of those ones especially in the off season, mate, when I've got more time on my hands, I will consume quite a few of them. So yeah, true crime's a big thing for me. I absolutely love it. I actually probably my favorite true crime podcast is called Case File.
Okay.
They sort of release an episode every week or two where they go through one case from somewhere around the world. Anyway, I've been listening to this since before I started Guru. And what I didn't really understand until about a year ago was that the guy that actually runs, and it's like a top 3, it might even be top number 1 true crime podcast in the world. And this guy, what I didn't realize is the guy that runs it, when he does live shows and everything, like you have to put your phone in a box before you go inside because it's completely anonymous as far as who he is. And funnily enough, he's actually he's an Australian who played rugby league, got injured and needed to do something else. Wow. So he got into podcasts. So anyway, I told some stupid story on one of my podcasts last year on Beers and Breakevens about how I was at a coffee shop and I was listening to one of his murder stories, and then I had to talk to someone, and I mentioned I was listening to Case File. And then the guy that actually runs Case File messaged me and said, "Oh, mate, thanks for giving the podcast a shout out." And I just went, "That guy listens to Beers and Breakevens? Crazy!" Like it's unbelievable how much of a small world rugby league is. Like this guy to me is the Michael Jordan of podcasting, and I had no idea for the last 8 years. But he tunes into our Supercoach show every week. It's mind blowing.
It's funny you say that because I guess it could segue into yourself, mate. So I know you weren't showing your face.
Yes.
And I wouldn't mind, we can do this later, but I wouldn't mind if I'm stealing it a little bit from the You Wouldn't pod. Pat Clifton, that's come on our one as well. Shout out to Patty. If you could actually roast my Instagram later on, I thought that might be... educational for myself as well, because obviously respect like your content and the way you built things. But yeah, you didn't show your face for the first 3 years.
First like 2 or 3 years. It sort of all blurs a little bit for me. The hard thing, and I hope I'm not cutting into your plan of this podcast here, but the hard thing for me was that I was a teacher. So for me, sort of in the teaching industry, they're a little bit iffy about social media and all that sort of stuff. So I sort of started it out, didn't show my face and everything. And then one of my best mates who's done incredibly well in social media world, like for his sake, I won't say who he is, but he's up to like 3 or 4 million followers. And he's just a guy I went to school with. That's one of my best mates. And he sort of pulled me aside one day and sort of was like, you could make a career out of this if you're serious about it. And I honestly laughed at him. I went, you're fucking off your head. Like, there's just no way. And he said what you need to do though is start to show your personality, show who you are. So yeah, it's crazy for me when I look back at it now that, you know, the first 30,000 followers had no idea what I looked like, who I was or anything. And I wasn't doing the podcast either, so they didn't even hear my voice. It was just me typing on social media, which I think social media has changed a lot now that you probably couldn't build that audience today doing that. You need to have a face to it. But, you know, there was times where I'd be at a pub or at a footy and I'd hear people talking around me or at the table next to me and they'd be talking about my page and have no idea it was me sort of thing, which is a surreal little moment. Or even like my mates at the pub, you know, they'd bring it up and talk about it and like they wouldn't know it was me or whatever.
Oh, so you didn't even tell your mate?
Well, like eventually I did, but you know, like mates of mates, or you know, you're at a wedding and you're sitting at a table and people are talking about whatever. Like when I first made the page, I sort of did it to try and trick some of my mates that are part of like my Supercoach draft that I do every weekend. We're going away next weekend, and I remember, you know, tricking a few of them into asking me questions and all that sort of stuff. That when I sort of said back to them, like, oh, how have you gone in your comp? I hoped that they'd lied and I'd be able to spring it on them. But I've got a pretty good group of mates, so they were all pretty upfront and honest. But yeah, it's funny, social media. Like you can, back then I would have been an active part of so many people's lives as far as Instagram and talking to their mates and Supercoach and all that sort of stuff, but had no idea who I was or what I looked like until ages later. It's amazing like how many people that I cross paths with in life that are big listeners or tune in all the time, or, you know, just stuff that's just, it's just crazy how far it actually goes. You know, we sit in a studio, we press record, you send it out, and then you just don't realise how far it goes sometimes. It's crazy. And even like some of the, you know, I've had people at Magic Round and stuff who have, you know, pretty much come up and said to me like, mate, I've been through a divorce, I've lost a child, I fucking being able to listen to you every day is sort of been the thing that sort of kept me going. You just like, to me, you just don't even realise how far that stuff sort of goes. I'm sure in your space as well, mate, like mental health podcasts, you talk to people after and realise, you know, and you know, it might not be my story, it might be Paddy Clifton's or someone else that something just clicks and it works. You know, the amount of wives that have come up to me and said, I think you've saved our marriage because my husband, you know, I have so much trouble getting him to do the dishes or clean the car or do this or do that. But now I put on a 12-minute podcast that you've put out, and in that 12 minutes it's done and we're hunky-dory.
I was glad you said that and not now. It's better in the bedroom because I was thinking, Jesus.
Don't rule it out. Don't rule it out.
Yeah, I was thinking, Jesus Christ. Okay, mate, you're really doing wonders for their relationship.
But it's even like at the end of last year, we had like our end of year Hello Sport Christmas party, and I met Sebo's wife for the first time. And she goes, I'm not sure if we'd still be together if it wasn't for you. And she's like, whenever he's got a chore to do, he listens to you and there's no problems whatsoever. And it's a 12-minute podcast. He gets a little bit and it just does what he needs to do. And we're all sort of laughing about it, but it is just crazy how far it actually goes. You just don't realise. And
how do you not deal with, but I guess like your interactions with people? Like I'd assume they're mainly positive. Yeah. Like have you had any negative?
Mate, I've had, you know, countless negative online, obviously, but in person, mate, I think as far as being a content creator, an influencer, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I think you have a responsibility to sort of educate your audience on what sort of behavior your community allows and accepts. And I think that's one thing that, you know, Bloke, Guru, Playbook, Hello Sport, like, there's, you know, it's all laughing and joking and everything and we're all having a good time, but there's also a general expectation of don't be a dickhead that I think we've done really well, that I have never once been to an event and had any trouble whatsoever. And like, I've been at events, you know, where we go to, you know, the country tours, for example, we did a couple of years ago where we went to Wagga, Rockhampton, Bundaberg, like we went to all these places and, you know, I was still sitting at the pub at 4 a.m. with the locals having beers and talking. I've never had any issues. And I think it is one thing that you see a lot of content creators online that are trying to post things just to get a reaction or just to get some sort of emotional, you know, an emotional reaction that you tailor your audience's behavior to what works. And, you know, I think people have worked out in my community that if you're going to be a dickhead, like you'll get sorted out pretty quickly as far as no one will engage with it or people will call you out on it. It's the beauty of what I've got now with like my Patreon group, the Roo Crew, which I just fucking love. And you get these, I put on these events where, you know, we get 100 people that show up and, you know, it's for, and like each to their own as individuals, but for something like that, like I'm not the sort of person that I would show up on my own to that. But I reckon out of 100, probably 60 of them are showing up on their own just because they know they'll get there and there'll be like-minded people like them. And that they know from the past that there's not going to be any dickheads, not going to have any dramas. And when you get in those rooms where you've got, you know, like we had an event at the end of last year on a Friday night. I had, you know, a couple that lived in Brisbane that took Friday off work to fly down, stay the night in Sydney. Like it would have cost them a fortune, but that's their community. And like that just, as I'm sure you'll appreciate and understand, that just means the absolute world to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, mate, because obviously I've only just met you now, but I kind of get the vibe that for you, those sort of things would mean more to you than money or anything else like material
money,
like that.
The followers, all that. Like it's all just pie in the sky. Like money obviously is great from, you know, your lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. And it matters. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't. Fuck, like when you're at an event and you've got, you know, someone coming up to you that's come to that event that's like, mate, I was ready to give up 12 months ago. And it's not all because of the podcast, don't get me wrong. But like that person might not have had a community, might not have had something that matters to them that's a communication board every single day that all of a sudden now they do. And they might come to that Roo Crew event and that's their Super Bowl for that year. That's their favourite night. They get to come to, they arrive and they get to hang out with and watch 2 games of footy. And, you know, get to meet me and whatnot, but then just also get to hang out with another 100 people that are like-minded like them. I think that when it comes to social media and stuff, like community will forever be the most important thing by far and away.
And I was going to ask you as well, mate, because I know in terms of support, your wife was your number one supporter. Yep. So was that scary, like going out, sort of obviously leaving the job and then going out on your own, kind of on your own on social media? And how quickly, I guess, did you think, okay, this is it? Like I've found my passion.
Yeah, no, it's like genuinely terrifying. Like I think like you hear stories that have come through the other side, and I have come through the other side, and it's all fantastic, and I'm well set up, but that's terrifying. Like just to take that plunge and leave the steady job and, you know, like you have, and, you know, for every one of my wife that is super supportive, there was 10 people that were like, what are you doing? Like, what are you, and that's only to your face as well. And like, if one of my mates came and said to me today, I'm going to leave my very stable job that I'm good at to go and do this, like there would be part of me in the back of my mind that's like, oh, is that the play? Like, is that the safest thing to do? But, you know, like sometimes you just got to fucking take a leap and you just got to see what happens. And I think the reality is, and, you know, like I can only talk for myself, and I'm very lucky also, you know, like I think all of us to be born in Sydney, for example, like of all the places in the world you could have been born, like Sydney is such an unbelievable place to live. And, you know, I'm very lucky. I've got a very supportive family, all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, like when I was talking about going, like when I was talking about leaving my job, like I sort of brought it up with my wife. And if I'm completely honest, part of me's probably hoped she would say, no, can't do that. But when she said, yep, fuck it, go for it, it was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Do this thing now. Like I remember coming off into 2019, I quit my job. I remember we went on a cruise with the family just for like 10 days or so over Christmas. And I remember like enjoying the first 5 days of that cruise, having a great time. But then the next 5 days I was like, fuck, when I set foot back on land, I'm on my own and I've got to make it work. I've got to work out how it's going to happen. That was in December 2019. Little did I know when I set foot, COVID was about to hit. So the world was about to be flipped upside down, but my world was already flipped upside down. I remember just sitting on that cruise, just looking at the ocean going, how the fuck am I going to do this? And, you know, you get those thoughts in your head that are, you never played a game of first grade. You're fucking dreadful at footy when you played. How on earth is this going to work? But you stick at anything enough and you make enough mistakes that you learn from. you can make anything work.
And then for yourself as well, mate, did COVID help?
Mate, COVID was like in a really messed up way because COVID was really fucked for a lot of people out there. COVID was the best thing that could have happened to me. It really was. Because I went from teaching, which, not a huge salary or whatever, and then I stopped teaching to go all in on this thing. So it was like, okay, there's going to be this huge gap where I'm not making money until I am, right? But that could take 2 years for all I know. All of a sudden COVID came along, and because I'd applied to do casual teaching, which means that, you're a substitute teacher. So it means that I wake up at 6 a.m. each morning and I'll have a text that said, there's an opportunity to work at blah, blah school. If you want it, yes. And then I'll go there, right? But because of COVID, and like if you think back to the rules at the time, like there was no way you could have had people going to different schools every single day. So it sort of meant it was all online. So what that meant is that I fell into a criteria of I was essentially getting money from the government every fortnight because I couldn't work, right? Which the reality was I'd accepted I'm actually going to make very little money. But then I got the government money, which sort of squared it all up. And it was just a case of, okay, I've got 6 months now to go all in. If it doesn't make any money, it actually doesn't matter because I'm getting help from the government during this period. And it just allowed me to go all in. And the other beauty was that people were sitting at home without anything to do, without anything to listen to. And if they were rugby league fans, like me and Timmy Williams always joked that, we both decided to go full time. And then 6 months later, the game stopped for the first time since World War II. Like, it's unbelievable, which sounds like a nightmare. But at the same time, you go, well, people still love rugby league. People are still desperate for any form of rugby league. So it just allowed me to spend all my time going all in on it. There was no restrictions on me whatsoever. And, we got through COVID, and I looked back at it and I went, okay, we're locked inside for 6 months. I uploaded 500 podcasts.
Wow.
Like just talking about whatever, answering people's questions, whatever. So, and it's one thing that I think has separated me in this space a little bit is that, I do my show with Timmy and I do my show with Kempy and they're all great. But if all of them disappeared tomorrow, because of COVID, I learned how to podcast on my own.
Yeah.
Which is probably a skill set I take for granted a little bit. But, this Payne Haas stuff happens the other day, and my reaction is, okay, I walk into my spare bedroom, I turn the mic on and I talk about it for half an hour. Whereas most people can't do that. They need to have someone to bounce off and everything. But I think because of COVID, it just left me with no choice but to find my own rhythm and be able to talk. It probably is like I was talking to a guy in content the other day who randomly messaged me and said, mate, I don't know how you do these solo podcasts. Like, my brain's going a million miles an hour. I can't logically structure what I'm saying. I'm thirsty. I'm coughing. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And it's sort of just a weird little skill set that I picked up off the back of COVID that is just, it's made a huge difference for me. And it's like such a weird skill set to have, but I feel so confident doing it.
Well, I guess it makes sense because, as you said, it was something, not an emergency podcast, but if something happens in rugby league, you can be the first one on it. Whereas other people, if they need the co-host, need the studio, anything like that, they got to get there.
And that's the whole thing, mate. Like, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, like, as good as you are at something, most of the time, first to market is still so important. And if you are the first voice to jump on after, and I think it has become something, it's slowly become more common in rugby league. Like, now you see, guys are doing like just flat stick live streams of games and talking about it. Then you've got, after Origins now, Kempy jumps on and does his podcast and all that sort of stuff. But I think that was my big advantage 7 years ago when I started, was that my audience knew, okay, the full-time whistle went in 15 minutes. Guru will have something up talking about that game, and it can be an instant reaction that you can get stuck into. And I just think it was such a unique thing at the time. And it was funny, like I had like an agency that I work with for the podcast. It was just around the corner here actually. And I remember like sitting down and they're like, hey, these like 15-minute podcasts you do, it's not going to work. Like it's not going to, like, it's not how podcasts are done. And I was like, why? And like, because it's just like the successful ones, that's not what they do. And I was like, no, it's not what they've tried. Like there's a market for it. Like if you, as I said to them at the time, I'm like, what's the fastest growing social media platform? It's TikTok. It's all 60 seconds. Like people, there's
want
content.
something quick.
So people want something quick. There's content and I'm on it Bloke in a bar, 4 hours. It couldn't go for longer if we tried. But there's also a market for short, sharp, this is my thoughts, this is my reaction. If I like this guy, I'll listen to his thoughts. I don't need a panel of 5 people to get their opinions. If I like this guy, I want to know what he thinks. And I sort of just found my own weird little niche market, and I just went all in on it. And if you can find a little white space and go big on it, it's funny what can happen.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, mate, what advice, I guess, could be for me or for someone sort of starting out, like with a podcast. Is it just, as you said, just fail your way to success? Is it look for a market that doesn't necessarily get their voices heard, or what would you say?
Oh, mate, and to be completely honest with you, it's hard for me because people come to me with this question like I'm some sort of expert on it. Like, mate, my timing was unbelievable. Like, as I said, if COVID doesn't happen, I don't know what my life looks like right now. I don't know if it ever gets off the ground. I don't know. So I don't think there's like one, perfect way to go about it. I just think that what I've always done is just been myself. And some people can't fucking stand me. Some people love me, and that's fine. But I think the only way to do it is just to be yourself, be authentic, and just be willing to put yourself out there. Like I could give you a top 50 things I've done that have failed that haunt me to this day. But my biggest fans would have no idea. They wouldn't remember it. Because the reality is, if I put out a podcast on Monday that was an absolute, like a new idea, that was a stinker that people hated, they've forgotten it by Friday because I've put out 5 more things.
Yeah, that's what makes sense because the turnover. So it's kind of like what they say about, I guess, successful businessmen as well. It's not actually the times that they've failed. It's the things they've tried and
100%.
just, and I did want to mention also, do you know Ricky Gervais's story?
Yes. Yeah.
And like he said that with his job, he got a severance pay, I think, for 6 months, and that's what allowed him. So I guess it's similar to you. Do you believe in like a little bit of fate and things like that? Oh, for sure.
Yeah, mate. And as I said, I've been so lucky to have so many things fall my way. But when those things have fallen my way, I've already been working my dick off to take advantage of them. And that's just all you got to do. And that's the same as business, sport, life, whatever it might be. I'm a big believer in, if you are putting your front foot in front and you're putting yourself in a position to be successful, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but things tend to fall my way when I'm working hard and trying to do things. And I think that's for most, it's not for everyone, I get that, but I think for most people, if you're putting yourself in the right positions, giving it everything you've got, things will tend to fall your way, is my belief anyway.
And then I guess for you, mate, like, because as I said, mentioning Paddy a bit on the pod, but a friend of the show, he's come on a couple times, and he actually said, like, it's funny that he has that, still sometimes has that imposter syndrome. Like, do you ever have that now?
Oh, mate, all the time. All the time. Like, it's, people consider me to be an expert of something I've never done. It's insane. It's crazy. But if you can connect with people, if you can, make them believe. And like, yes, there is an element of you have to know something about what you're talking about. Like you have to be good at what you're doing. And I think that, there's some guys that I do see on social media that are grinding away for 4 and 5 years that it's not happening, that, the reality might be that that's actually not something they're great at. They might love it, but they might not be great at it. You have got to have the skill set to be able to do it is the other reality of it. And I think I'm lucky that the first thing I really took a big punt on and tried at, I actually wouldn't say I was good at it. I'd say I got good at it and then started to understand and work out how it all worked. And, there'd be people that would say, you like, for me, for example, which is all very warranted and fair. Like if Kempy didn't pick me up, would the life be the same? 100% no, it wouldn't. If Hello Sport didn't pick me up, would life be the same? No, it wouldn't. But Kempy didn't pick a name out of a barrel. I put myself in that position to get those opportunities and then to take advantage of that, which comes back to what I said before. I was talking to Cam Murray the other day at the season launch, and I was talking about, South have just signed Payne Haas. They've got this amazing team on paper. And he just kept saying the same thing to me. He goes, mate, all I do every day is I stamp my ticket to have an opportunity to maybe do something. I thought that's actually fucking spot on. It's exactly what I did. I stamped my ticket every day. And then the opportunity arose that Kempy needed a co-host, and my ticket was there for 2 years, and then I got an opportunity.
You know what I kind of liken it to, mate, if I can use a rugby league analogy?
Yep.
I think, like, let's say my favourite player was Nathan Hindmarsh, like an Eels fan. And, you know, sometimes he might get, or you see it in footy, the bounce of the ball, like it comes back to him, and the commentators say luck.
Yep.
For me, I'm not going into my story. My listeners know I've had a big past with gambling for rugby league. Quite like crazy, hectic story. And people often say to me, oh, you got lucky in the end to sort of win and not gamble and things like that. I don't know if I believe in that, because I think if you're a player and you're down the field every single time, you're not going to get the bounce of the ball probably 9 out of 10 times. But that one time it bounces up, then you hear the commentators say, oh, that was a lucky bounce.
Yep.
And I actually don't agree with that, because the Hindmarsh, for example, mate, he would be 50, 60 tackles and you'd still see him running down the field, and then he might get a fortuitous sort of try and then they say, oh, luck. You know what I mean?
Mate, I think the best example of it ever, and, you know, people give this guy a lot of stick, but he's always my best example of that, is Braithen Astor. And, you know, if you look back at the early 2000s with Lockyer, Freddie, your Trent Barretts, these sort of guys, like, and you look at Braith, he wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, you know, he wasn't the most skillful of that period, but Braith always put himself in the frame. And, yeah, there would be times where the ball would bounce to Braith and they'd say the same thing, the ball always bounced to him. It's like, no. Braith always puts himself in that position, and it doesn't shock me whatsoever who's sitting in that NRL 360 seat and has set themselves up for a lifetime. And no one cops more shit than Braith. No one cops more of the overrated tags and all that sort of stuff. But you get an overrated tag because people respect you, and there has to be a reason for that. It's because Braith always puts himself in the fray.
Yeah, I reckon, mate, because it feels like it's time. We'll move into the sporting sort of offload, mate. Yep. So I guess for you, speaking of like your idols and things like that, like Brad Fittler was like one of your idols. What about meeting him, and what was it like that interaction?
Yeah, no, it's cool, mate. Like Freddie was always, like, as a kid, my favourite player. I loved Freddie. I still do, you know. And, you know, I've met him once or twice now, and, you know, he's obviously a lot older than me, and I not big on the social media. So, like, he's got no idea who or what I am or anything like that, which is, it actually makes it heaps fucking better. But yeah, Freddie's always been a big favourite of mine, but, like, some times that we've spent with, like, Matty Johns and just seeing what he's done, you know, like you look back at that footy show 30 years ago now, 25 years ago, when he really burst into the scene. Like, for him to be one of the main guys then and still to be the main guy now, 25 years later, is unbelievable. Like, Matty is just a genius at what he does. And, you know, like, I'm sure you'd be the same. But, you know, I look at Paul Vaughton and I'm like, GOAT. But to my younger brother who's 19, like, Paul Vaughton doesn't mean anything to him.
Yeah, they have really no idea.
No idea. But Matty Johns has translated generations. And I think the biggest thing with Matty Johns is, like, if you have a look at 25 years ago, the guys that were commentating the sport and the opinions that we respected, you know, the Phil Goulds and the Ray Warrens, like, they're still respected. But if you have a look at, that's the other thing that blows me away with Matty, is that he was the funny guy 25 years ago and he's still the funny guy today. I think it's easier to stay relevant when you're talking about sport. I think it's harder to stay relevant as the funny guy. Like, when you have a look at, you know, if you have a look at comedians that stay at the top for 30 years, very tough to do. Very similar. Like, when we were kids, Adam Sandler was the GOAT. Adam Sandler doesn't mean much to my brother.
He doesn't mean much to my wife. I'm trying to get her into it. Yeah. She's English, and mate, I know we're detouring, but oh God, I try to get into Waterboy, the old favourites. Obviously, the first Happy Gilmore. She tolerated it, but probably not like her humour. But I do. It's true what you're saying, because you look at Matty Johns, for example. As you said, how tough it is to actually be funny to two different generations, because even if you watch TV, I'm getting like an old man. I watch some of the shows and I'm like, what is this shit?
Yeah, mate, I'm exactly like I still, if I've got some spare time and I want to watch a TV show, Seinfeld goes on straight away. I
Seinfeld.
love Seinfeld. It's the best. It will never be challenged for me as far as greatest show of all time. But once again, I show Seinfeld to my brother and he pretty much looks at it and he's like, if they had mobile phones, every show doesn't exist. None of the problems they ever had exist. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't live in that time. You didn't appreciate it, how much it changes. And I look at some of the stuff that he watches and the shows that he likes. I'm just like, this is atrocious.
Yeah, that's how, mate.
For Matty Johns
like
to cross 25 years and be as relevant to a 50-year-old as he is to a 19-year-old, it really is incredible.
What's your favourite? I know we're going on a different tangent, but what's your favourite Seinfeld app?
Oh, tough. I love the episode where they with Keith Hernandez, where they do the spit and the reaction.
Oh,
and it hits him on the left side.
yeah.
I love Marine Biologist is a very good one. I watched the Red Spot the other day where he buys Elaine. I'm sort of if you put on Seinfeld within about a minute, I'll be able to tell you what happens in the entire episode, sort of thing. Because it was just growing up, and it still is just my show. I just love it. My first dog's name was Kramer.
Oh, really?
I love Seinfeld. Absolutely love it. But mate, I think that's the beauty of Seinfeld is that it'd be harder to name the 10 bad episodes.
Yeah,
because they're just crackers. They just didn't miss, and I think Seinfeld is a really good example of going out on top. Like I look at The Simpsons and I'm like, fuck, season 2 to 10, unbelievable, but the last 20. Hard pass.
The kind of the Simpsons is kind of like a parody on itself now, isn't it? And
yes, it is.
And the characters, what I found, I remember for a long time thinking, what is like annoying me or what is it? And then I was like, it's the fact that all the characters like Marge, Lisa, Bart can have the same story or can react the same as each other. And I'm like, but that's not like the premise of the show. You
100%,
know, Lisa was, I guess, before her time, like in a certain sense, was a vegan and things like that. You had Bart was like the Hellraiser, but now I know because they've done so many eps, like you said, it's probably hard to keep like the foundation of the characters. But God, it's a mess.
Oh mate, and like I reckon of their last 400 episodes, I might have watched 20 of them, but those 20 I've watched, I'm just like, it's not the same.
Yeah,
it's not the same as what it was. Like it's been a big thing for me and my wife. We've always said when we have kids, they're watching season 2 to 10. I don't care whether you like it or not. Tough shit, you're watching it.
My she's 3 now, but with my she was about probably 1.5. I watched from episode 1 to I actually went to 15, and then I just couldn't. I was like, I just can't. And I thought, maybe not rewatching, but watching the new episodes because I hadn't watched them. I was kind of like, but it was a tough watch, guys.
We like on our bloke show, Kempy not so much, I don't think, but like Hammy, Timmy, me, and Maddie, we all grew up on Simpsons, and like Hammy and Timmy in particular, their recall of quotes and everything. Like I reckon on a Monday, you like if you're in that studio, like off camera and everything, you'd get like probably 3 to 5 niche Simpson quotes every Monday that I just piss myself at. And I'm like, for guys that are our age, it is just such a bonding show that I could be sitting in a pub and if there's a Simpsons quote, I will get it immediately. And I'm the same with Seinfeld, obviously, but I think Simpsons a little bit more popular in that regard. But yeah, special shows and, Simpsons on top of the world when we were kids, and you just thought this will never end. And it hasn't ended, to be fair, but it's just not the same. And it's humour, once again, it's staying relevant for 30 years. And that's what, without circling back to Matty Johns, is just the thing that amazes me with him. He's still so relevant.
I wanted to ask you, mate, too, because you have mentioned it twice, obviously, with Bloke. Like doing those, because I've never done such a long podcast. Like, how does it feel? Like the ebbs and flows, like do you feel like, this is a dead spot, this is good, or do you is it so much that now you guys are so natural with it you actually forget the cameras and the mics are on?
Yeah, I do think there is an element of like forgetting the mics are on. I do think with our bloke show sometimes, because it does go for so long, there are periods of it where I'm like we spoke about this last week kind of thing, but the other way that we look at it is that I don't even know which NRL team do you go for. Who's your side?
I'm an Eels fan, unfortunately.
Beautiful. So it's like, what I've got to remember is that I might be talking about these 17 teams every week, and I might feel like I'm having the same conversation sort of thing, but you might just be tuning in for your Eels section. And, you might not tune in every week. You might tune in every 2 and 3 weeks. And it is a different conversation for you guys each week. So you've got to be putting in every single time. And I think that the beauty is that, I don't know how glued you are to your Eels kind of thing. But like if I mention a play that happened and this guy ran a good block and I've said the wrong guy, I'll get a handful of Eels fans message me that night and go, hey, that was...
I probably wouldn't go
that was
that
Kelmer,
far.
That wasn't blah, blah, but there's a lot of those fans out there
Yeah.
that, in their mind, they're going, I'm listening to my Parramatta section. If he gets something wrong, he's a dickhead. They don't take in the hindsight that, like the perspective that, he's doing 17 of those. But that's the only one that they care about, that they focus about. And those are the fans that keep our game alive. Those are the fans that allow me to do this full time and to make good money off it and live the life I do. So you've just got to appreciate them and understand that, like sometimes I might not feel like talking about the Titans spine for the 8th week in a row, but you just got to put everything into it because I'm very privileged to be in the seat I'm sitting in.
Nah, that does make sense, man, because it's funny you said that because when your season review came out, what one did you think I went straight to? Straight to the Eels.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And as you should. And there's...
Yeah.
It's and most people are the same. Realistically, they go to their team first. They want to know what we think. We did our preview last week that went for 6.5, 7 hours or whatever. And I, before you start each one, you sort of got to take a deep breath and go, okay, people aren't up to hour 3. This is minute 1 for them because this is their team.
That's a very good point.
This is what they want to consume, and you've just got to try and you get to the last team and you've been sitting there for 6.5 hours, but it's minute 1 for them.
That is kind of like when I first started personal training, like a older trainer said to me that because you at one playground, you get a lot of, where I work, you get a lot of opportunities and they get you busy straight away. But he said, just remember that we are kind of a walking Coldplay concert.
Yeah.
Because he said, if you go see Coldplay, that one night, it might be pissing down rain. You don't know what's going on with their family, with their mental health, anything. But if you go out and they come out and they're rubbish, you're going to tell all your family and friends, Coldplay is shit live.
Yeah, and if you're the 8 p.m. PT and you've done 8 of them today, you're exhausted, you're over it. But that person that's showing up to you has left 3 crying kids at home. They've probably got a wife at home that's doing dinner, putting kids to bed. They're not stoked, they're leaving. But that's their hour that they prioritise for themselves, they want to make the most of, and they get there and the PT's not all in. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
It's funny you say that, mate. Obviously, it's about you today, but I did have a client. She did 8 p.m. twice a week, and this is the days of like when I was a new PT. So waking up at 5 and going the whole thing, and I thought I really disliked her.
Yes.
And then she changed her time, and then I was like, I won't say her name. She probably wouldn't mind, but I won't say her name just in case because I've told her this now. I've had her for years.
Yeah.
And I said, when you change, then it was like, we're best friends. So it's a good point.
Yeah.
But that is probably my fault because I should have come with the same energy, as you said, as session 1 because they like seeing you human, but essentially, like you said, for them, that's their session. Yeah. That's what they've paid 100%. You for. Yeah.
And, mate, there's been times where I finish bloke on a Monday and on a Tuesday morning I wake up and there's a message from, just for example, an Eels fan. And they're like, you said this and this. And I'm like, I didn't fucking say that. And I'll go back and listen to the podcast and I'll listen back to it and I'll be like, okay, that actually probably wasn't my best performance, which sort of pushes me to be more on top of it. Because as you said, mate, you can want to do the best you possibly can for the 8 p.m. person every single time. Occasionally you're going to drop the ball. You're human. That's going to happen. Unfortunately, what you said about the Coldplay stuff is 100% correct. People remember their worst experiences. And, if you go and have a look at anything in the world, the reviews on there are the bad things. There's a lot of businesses open. A lot of people are doing good things. You just never hear about it. And it's the same as my social media and all that sort of stuff. You go and you look at the comments and there's a lot of negative stuff there all the time. But
oh, really? On your one?
Oh, yeah, on there. Okay. And you know what, mate? And this is the other beauty of it. I would see it more than anyone. And at the end of the day, no one gives as many fucks as I do. So that's the other thing that I think with social media and putting your face out there and stuff that people need to realise that no one actually cares as much as you think they do.
Yeah, I do. It's funny you didn't say that, but I don't want to sound like a crazy Eels fan. So I
Yeah.
do want to circle back to that. But with what you're saying now, mate, like for you, has any comment like you've seen really gotten to you before, would you say, or changed your day?
Mate, in the early days, it probably would have, if I'm completely honest. But I've grown a pretty thick skin pretty quickly. And you know what? I think the other side of it is that things that used to annoy me, like negative comments about content I put out. Like for me, I sit there and I used to sit there, which I think a lot of content creators do, and go, hold on, I worked a full day. Like I used to get up and go to, and, be a teacher from, I'd get there at 7:30, I'd leave at 5. But I wouldn't get there at 7:30. I'd actually get there at 6:30 so I could sit in my classroom and make content for the day.
Okay.
Then I'd come home at 5 and, my missus want to go out for dinner and I'd have to be like, no, like I've got to make content. I've got to jump in the podcast studio. I've got to start talking. And, for her at the time, it was like, okay, so you're going to go and do that for 3 hours when you're making no money from it whatsoever. And then you're going to fall asleep and get up the next morning and do it all over again, which when I get a negative comment about something I do, I'm like, hold on, you don't know what I've sacrificed today. But the reality is, and the sooner people realise it and move on with it, no one gives a fuck. Everyone's got their own problems. Everyone's got their own shit. If they don't like something, so be it.
Yeah.
You just got to move on with it and just keep going. And I think for me now, when I get a negative comment, I'm sort of like, and sometimes I'll be in a bad mood and I'll start replying to it. And then I finish it, and before I press send or, post or whatever, I'll sort of look at it and be like, going to Vegas in 3 weeks. I'm lucky enough to do this show. Well paid for what I do. Just leave it. Because I'm very lucky to be in the position I'm in. I think when you start to reap some of the rewards of it, it becomes a lot easier to see the negative stuff and everything. And I think it's also just the reality of social media that it's a weird thing that people just think that they can say whatever they want on social media. It has, like, you'd know, mate, you're in the mental health space. Like, and I'm pretty lucky, to be honest. I've got a really good community. As I said, I cop shit sometimes, but it's never too bad, realistically. When I go online and I see, other influence and everything that, you go through their comments and everything, and everyone is just hammering them personally. And I just sit there and I'm like, who are these people? Like, who are these people that think on socials it is just play on to absolutely hammer someone and completely degrade who they are and what they are because you don't agree with them? Like, it's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. But it is, unfortunately, so common.
Yeah, you do. I sort of think the same, and that's why I try to stay off it sometimes, because you can go down that, as you said, think who could comment, like make these comments, or, you get the wrong end of the algorithm or things like that as well. I guess for you though, now that, as you said, you've got that community like with Bloke, with Hello Sport and the boys, like does that must help as well, because you guys could kind of have a laugh about things like that as well. And
it does. And you sort of, when you've been in the game enough, you do just learn to sort of have a laugh about it and whatnot. I think I spoke about it on the buy round the other day, but like Matty the Waterboy was sick as a dog, and he came into work to make sure we get the podcast out. He had to run out, I think 4 times in 2 hours to throw up, essentially, come back, sit in the chair, do it all. Anyway, he uploaded it as quick as he could, then just went home and died. He slept for like fucking 18 hours or something. Like, he was really crook. And I remember opening the YouTube that night, and the first comment was, "I'm not watching this. There's no timestamps." And it's like, you don't know how much Matty went through just to get this uploaded. You don't know how much Matty went through just to get into the studio that day. But that's the key to it. They don't know. And you've just got to learn to accept that.
I just thought about this one, mate. What about, like, for yourself, having someone on the pod or just even doing an interview? Like, has there been anyone where you kind of got nervous or were a little bit, didn't know how it would sort of go?
Mate, to be honest with you, I don't interview too many people. I do a lot of stuff myself. And I have, a couple of shows I do with other people. Like Sowie. Even Sowie, when he first came on, like Sowie was my favourite player. Like I love Sowie. Like you asked my mates growing up, Sowie was my favourite player by far and away. So then, like, to have him on the show was pretty wild. To then, have him on the show, and then we go to the pub and we have 3 beers and we have a slap. Like it's a bizarre sort of thing. But, I can be on a Tuesday afternoon going for a walk and just ring Sowie and say, what's going on? And we'll talk for 40 minutes. Not about rugby league. It's about anything else that's going on. But like, I remember when Sowie first came on, I was very nervous and all that sort of stuff. Like if you have a look at my personal Instagram, there's 3 photos from the 2010s of just when I met Sowie out, and I have a photo with him. Like, just crazy that now he's part of my brand that I've built. It's just wild. But mate, realistically, I remember in the early days I did like a number of interviews with people and everything. Like probably my biggest one that I did back then was having Nath Cleary on the podcast. And I just remember thinking, my God, this guy is just like, he just won his first comp. And I remember thinking, this might be the greatest footballer to ever play. And he's jumping on my podcast. He's larger than life. And then you talk to Nath and, as you're talking to him, his dog's sitting on his lap. The internet dropped out during, and he rang me back immediately. He was like, sorry, mate, like, is everything okay? Like, we can keep going. Like, I think that's the thing with people in general, but just for me, like rugby league players, like, they're just dudes.
Yeah.
They're just dudes with a job that people like watching. That's all it is at the end of the day. Like, they're just dudes.
Yeah, because it was interesting actually when I was over in England and I interviewed a couple of the boys that play for London Broncos.
Yep.
And to me, obviously, like meeting them's quite an honour, and to interview them. And then we sort of like, when we finished the pod, went very well. And then same sort of thing, we had a beer together. And then one of them was saying, oh God, like I met James Maloney or whatever. And his view of himself, obviously, as just a normal guy, I think it's still quite a great level to play for London Broncos, but, they're in the championship and things like that. But he was talking about, things, and it was kind of a weird experience for me because I'm thinking, like, you're saying that to me like I'm on your level, but I was similar to you. Like, I played rugby league,
Mate,
but God.
2 days ago, I'm at the NRL season launch, right? So I'm talking to all the captains. So you've got 7 of the best players in the game there that are coming up, and you're interviewing them and everything, and they're all fantastic. It's all great. But the Broncos are already in England for the World Club Challenge. So their whole squad's over there. So they sent Billy Walters, who's injured at the moment, not going to England. So Billy's there in his kit. He came over and said hello, and he goes, mate, fuck, I've been stitched up. Like, there's some of the best players in the world here, and then I'm standing here, And he was talking to me as if, like, he's almost on our level. And I'm like, mate, I said to him in the interview, I go, mate, I'm looking around this room and I can see 16 of the best players in the world. Only one of them was called on stage to hold the trophy last year with Adam Reynolds. It was you. Like, don't sell yourself short. Like, and but they're the same, mate. Like, if they're all there, all those stars, and then Joey walks in, they look at Joey as another level above. Wally Lewis walks in, they look at him as so it's all perspective on where you sit. And when when I managed to get those guys on the podcast and they're talking, or like the interviews we had the other day, like, like I'm talking and you forget that this is Harry Grant, the Australian captain. He's just another dude that's just happy to talk about whatever and have a chat and have a laugh. Like that, they are just people at the end of the day.
It just popped into my head, mate, as well. When you, because when I first messaged you, you're over in England for the Ashes.
Yes.
What about your reach there? Like, did you find people would come up to you, and was that also a bit weird to have fans even internationally as well?
Yeah, well, like going over to, and like depending on where you were in England, like in London, I didn't talk to a single person. No one came up to me. No one said anything. But once we got to like Leeds,
the North,
yeah, they just love it, and it's it actually surprised me how many people did come up and that were like English fans that live there. And that's the other thing, mate. Like, I don't talk about the Super League. I don't watch it. I always say, I'm not going to do a half-assed job with the Super League. If I'm not going to watch it properly, I'm not going to pretend to report on it. So I really don't talk about the Super League. If anything, I assume a lot of English fans would think I almost look down on the Super League, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because there's not a section for it.
Like I think there's an automatic thing to go, he doesn't talk about the Super League, he thinks it's shit. When in reality, it's just, no, if I can't do it justice and do it properly, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert at it, sort of thing. But mate, the amount of just English fans just come up, said hello, and a lot of them, very nice to me, then they'd finish with, and you're an Aussie, fuck you, and walk away, and I'm like, mad. That's exactly how it should be. I don't like you either. I'll be respectful to you, But I don't like you either in this context as far as Australia or England, which is just the best thing about rugby league. And I think Magic Round really brings that out. You go up there and everyone's in their jerseys, everyone's supporting their team, but everyone's there for rugby league. And everyone's each other's best mates. But if our two teams are playing each other at 7:30, fuck you. You're dead to me.
Mate,
which I love.
We couldn't believe, and it's funny because I've heard like a few potties recently where you've mentioned the retro rugby league guy.
Yes.
And that you thought maybe that niche would be too small. But my mates, and this is maybe a thing about being older too, my mate goes, just have a look around and see what you notice. And we're looking around in Brisbane. And I was like, and he looked back and he goes, what did you notice? And I go, everyone here has a retro rugby league jersey on. Like, not one, quote unquote, young person had the current jersey. It was all retro. And he said, I think that's when he mentioned, actually, he goes, oh, there's also this Instagram page of him. So I guess that's back on the content route. But for you, you must think he's done amazingly well.
Oh, mate, I think he's done so well. And as soon as I saw him upload that, I straight away went, me and my mates love this. This is what me and my mates talk about. It's not uncommon for me and my mates to, if we've had a few beers and whatnot, we quite often do a thing where we go someone will just, Matty the Waterboy does it all the time, where he'll go 2002 Eels and we try and name them 1 to 13. And then we look it up and see how close we got, blah, blah, blah. And people like me and Matty the Waterboy could tell you, 2002 Eels, the jersey looked like this, the sponsors were, I think, this, and this. Just all these little things that is just the dumbest knowledge you could possibly have. But there's so many people out there that love that, especially for their team. They just absolutely froth it. And when he started that page, I thought, it's too niche. It's too niche to work. But the way that he's done it has been incredible. And so many people are into it. They just love it, especially for their team. But just in general, I think people love it. And I think the reality is nostalgia is always going to be hard to beat. It's always going to be hard to beat. Even me, when I did my whole rebrand of everything is built off what the rugby league weeks used to look like.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
And I got an agency to do that. It cost me an arm and a leg. And sometimes I look at it and I'm like, I could have done this myself. But then you actually look at it and you're like, no, I couldn't have done this myself. And you have a look at all Bloke, Hello Sport, Guru, all done by the same agency. Simple, but effective. We've each got our own branding, our own style that just works.
Yeah, because it's funny to go back to, mate, when you're chatting about the 2002 Eels or things like that. I'm very similar to yourself. Yeah. So my mates sort of say, I'm like the Rain Man of rugby league.
Yes,
so,
100%, yes.
So for me, I don't know if you do this, but I could sort of remember the day leading up to a certain game, and my mate would go, how could you? I'll be like, I remember the time I went to the game. So that day, maybe I had an argument with my mum, and then it was a bit rainy, so we decided, and he's like, what the heck? He goes, how can you remember that? But I guess that's also part of, what they say sometimes for kids in school, just the attention span. If you don't like something, it's harder to pay attention.
Oh, mate, 100%. And I'm exactly the same. I can tell you the dumbest details about rugby league events that I remember, or little things about players or little things like that you just store in the back of your mind because you're interested in them. And you might not remember that you remember them. But when the time comes and you got to pull that out of your ass all of a sudden, and it quite often happens to me, when I do live streams with Hello Sport and people ring in and they ask things and everything. And I just I get these random little bubbles that pop in my head of just things that I remember that they couldn't be more useless unless I'm in the job that I'm in right now. And, I think people that don't have that think I'm some sort of savant, but all my mates are the same. We all remember stupid shit like that about certain games, whatever. Sowie's the king of it, absolute king of it. That's what I love about Sowie, is that one, he's a former player, but two, he's a dribbler that just loves rugby league, but he embraces it. It's one sort of little gripe I have with players at the moment, that I think a lot of them are afraid to be in love with rugby league. I don't think it's seen as being cool sort of thing to be obsessed with the game. That's a bit different when it's your job, and I understand that. But that's what I love about Sowie, and why I always want him to be a part of what I do. He is unapologetically a fucking nerd for the game. And I love that he doesn't try and hide it or anything like that. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's a fair point that you make, because even I've had different current players on, and they sort of say, like, I might say, oh, how much footy do you watch during the week? And they're like, I don't watch at all, you know? So as you said, it could be considered the new trend.
Yeah,
I
and
guess,
like it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It does go both ways. But like, yeah, if I was to have two players that I'm choosing from to go in my squad that are both evenly talented and everything, I would always, it's like a big test that I would do with football players. Lift up the boot of their car and see if there's any students in there. Like me and my mates still have probably one or two sitting. They might have been sitting there for 5 years, but you still got a football nearby, or there's a football in the house, or something like that. If there's a football if there was a football in this room when we walked in before we started, I would have 100% just picked it up and had it in my hand or whatever. But there's a lot of guys that just aren't like that. Like, I know for a fact from talking to guys, a lot of first graders that like they won't watch State of Origin, which I just think is insane.
I do think, yeah, I'd probably agree with you. Considering that is the pinnacle, would you not want to watch the best of the best and learn from that?
Mate, even if you're not learning from it, I just don't understand how someone cannot enjoy it. Yeah, how it is the peak. It's the best form of entertainment. But, you know, and those guys would make the argument back to me, no, you don't get it. Your life isn't. And like to some extent my life is, but not to the same extent as the players by any means, as far as the pain they're putting themselves through with their bodies and all that sort of stuff, the sacrifices they make, all that sort of stuff. But it is like I love footballers that are obsessed. And that's one thing, like Lockie Galvin cops a lot of crap at the moment, but you can tell that kid loves footy. You can tell he loves it, so I'll always defend him.
Yeah, going back to things, or just things popping into our heads and being on the same wavelength. Mate, I can remember a Joey Johns DVD, and it had it showed you how to kick and things like that.
The different angles and where to put your hands on the ball.
Do you remember that DVD?
Yep.
And I can remember...
Me and Sowie talk about this probably once a fortnight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, love it.
But it's funny, the thing, I do remember like the banana kick, and he's showing you how to kick, and then I'd go out there and like give it a go. I remember I was in a park once giving it a go, and I shanked it, and a girl just started laughing at me. Bloody, it's a wonder I was a virgin back then. But people probably still wonder why I am now. No, I'm obviously not now.
That was earlier this morning.
Yeah. But yeah, just in that DVD, I can actually remember it was, I think, just from memory, himself, Mark Hughes, and potentially Maddie. But, and they were just watching the tennis, actually. And he said, I can get this a little bit more. He said before, if we have a Saturday game, he goes, I don't like to watch the Friday game because I can sort of... play the game in my head before I run out. Like that, I get what you're saying. There's both sides. That makes more sense. But yeah, to not want to enjoy and watch Origin is hard to understand, I guess.
Like I remember Sowie telling me a story about how when he was at the Roosters in the early parts of his career, he was, it was Friday night. He was watching Friday Night Footy. His coach at the time was Ricky Stewart. And Ricky Stewart just sent Sowie a text, did you see that? It was just something from the game. And Sowie replied immediately, yeah, I noticed that, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it was anyway. And I remember Sowie telling me a story about how like a few days later he was sort of with teammates and one of them mentioned that Ricky texted him and he was like, what are you talking about? I'm at the club on a Friday night. I'm not watching fucking Brisbane play. And Sowie sort of sitting there like, you're not watching them? Like you're not watching every other game, every other weekend to just enjoy it, but also just to learn from them and stuff. And it's just, everyone's different. Everyone is just completely different. And there's a lot of guys that are nowadays like some of the best players in rugby league who like I know for a fact on that Kangaroo tour I went on, there's 3 guys that I know for sure that haven't watched State of Origin over the last few years, which is just crazy. Like they're one injury away from playing in it, but some of them just don't engage. And it's I think it's just a generational thing that you've just got to accept and just accept that that's what they're like. But I think there will always be those guys that just live and breathe the game that I'll always back.
I've got another story that I remember. I don't want to butcher the story, but I've heard this story that Daniel Anderson, when he coached at the Warriors, it was sort of similar. There was the Friday night game, and then all the boys got together, and he intentionally said something completely inaccurate and about like don't want to offend my Kiwi listeners, but he said something, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, bro, yeah," and then he was like, "Well, that didn't fucking happen." He goes, "That did not happen." He's like, none of you have watched it, and he said that was about from the story, as I said, don't want to misquote it, but apparently that was like around at least 10 players were like, "Oh yeah, we saw that," and then we thought that as well, like and he was like.
It's very common. It's very like I think you just assume all these guys are obsessed, and they, you have to be obsessed. Like they're obsessed with their trade, but it's Sowie always puts it really well. He goes, some guys love the lifestyle, some guys love the game, and they're two very different things. Some guys are both, 100%. But I do think, and I think it's just the reality with sport around the world. Like the NFL, I'm a huge fan of. Like you can see the amount of time and effort that some NFL and NBA players put into their outfit before the game. Which I'm like, express yourself, do your thing. I think it's great. I enjoy that stuff, but like it is obviously time that they're spending not on the game itself. But those players would argue, I need to get away from the game to play my best footy. But that's just not how I'm wired and how Sowie's wired and how probably a lot of us fans are wired that, a lot of these players can lose a game on Friday night and then hug their mates after and have photos and everything. And I see a lot of journos getting pissed off about it. Whereas, there's, a large majority of fans out there that if their team loses on Friday night, they've got the shits at work on Monday.
It's a tough, the years when Paris had a tough season.
Like some of the years you've been through would just be brutal. But those players would argue as well, we need to escape from it a little bit because come Monday, I'm flogging myself. I'm having the equivalent of 20 car accidents in the next 10 days, putting my body through what I need to get myself ready to do it over again on Saturday. So they need that detachment from it. It's just really interesting, like looking at how it all sort of like Kemby, for example, when he retired, like I'm pretty sure he didn't watch rugby league for 2 or 3 years because he just needed to get away from it again to fall back in love with it. James Graham was the same. But like I think because we, it's not career defining for us or for most of us anyway, and we've got Supercoach and all that sort of stuff. Like there is just still a genuine love and passion there.
I do want to chat about Supercoach soon, but I guess just speaking of Kempy or James Graham, like, would you say they're exactly like how I guess people would view them on social media? Like when you met them and now you're good mates, obviously, was your perception the same or is it a little bit different?
Mate, to be honest with you, before I was like on Bloke in a Bar, like as I said to you before, like I didn't really consume much social media. Like it's funny, before I like came into the space and started doing my own stuff, like I think like Kempy was around, Roasty was around, Clarkey was around. And like, I'm not saying this in an arrogant way. I didn't know those guys existed because it just wasn't a world I was into. It just the social media. Social media for me was you see what your mates are doing. And that's it. I wouldn't consume anything outside of that. So I sort of came into this space like when I realised Denham was doing social, I was like, oh, that was the lightning quick kid that was playing soccer that all of a sudden ended up playing for the Broncos that went to the Warriors and then sort of faded out. Like,